You have one of those situations when a lot of stuff is happening all at the same time. Well, I'm getting ready to go into something like that this week. Let's talk about it. All right, this week is going to be a busy week. I get to be actually a week and a half to be in four, we'll say three medical institutions for this week and one next week. This week I get to go see my pulmonologist, my dentist, get to have my biopsy that we've been talking about, and then I get to chill out at the house for 24 hours, and then I get to see a foot doctor. The foot doctor is actually next week, so it's really this week where I get Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday I get to do stuff. So today I went to the I can't talk today. Pulmonologist. I haven't seen one in maybe a year, only because the doctor that I had left the institution and I was at a level where I didn't need anyone right then. They did give me some referrals, but I don't remember who those people were. So I got a referral from my regular GP doctor, and she gave me some referrals. So I picked one, and that's what I have. And I went to today. After looking over my record, and I think I actually had him through the other guy, because I think sometimes when the other guy was doing things, he would bring this guy in who was above him in. So this time it looks like I got a more prestigious pulmonologist than I had before. I mean, because he even has a building named after him. I'm like, oh, okay, God, this is interesting, this journey this time. So anyway, after hearing my mixed up crazy story about my history and then him looking over my records, he at this point where for what's coming up in the coming weeks, he's gonna do a CT scanner of the lung, because I already had 2 nodules that's been on my lung for years, and they always do a routine update to see if they've grown or not, and they haven't. And even one year they shrunk, so one of them shrunk. So now we're gonna get an updated one, because it's been maybe a year and a half since we saw the last one, and there's definitely time to make sure those lung nodules are okay. And then I'm getting ready to have a pulmonary function test, which I haven't had in a minute, but I already knew when December came in and I was having all the sinus issues I was telling you about and the respiratory issues I was having, like, oh man, this is starting to feel real familiar, and it's time for me to go to the pulmonologist, and that's why I'm here now. But when you have a specialist, you can't get the appointment right away. So I had to wait almost a month and a half just to get to this point to talk to him. And right now, what's happening in December is better, but I'm still doing these gasping breaths every now and then. So it's not, I could tell it's still not there. And my peak performance, which I test every single day for, I don't know, since 2020, it has gone down a little bit. So I already know something's going on there, because every time I do that, I'm coughing. So that's not quite good. That's even another reason why I said I need to go back, because I started this coughing thing in December. So this is not normal for me to be coughing at all. So I don't know. Almost making me start to wonder, don't tell me I got to go back to the sink air, because when I had the sink air, the coughing stopped. Didn't hardly do anything for my IgE levels, which they're going to do a blood work on about my allergies and IgE levels, which I would love to see too, because I always like to see what that number is right now. We know it's high, but it's nowhere near as high as it was in 2020 when it was like 1,300. Now it's like the last I saw was maybe 4 or 5. So it's still high, but 400 or 500, but still high, but not in the range, which should only be like 100 and below. So anyway, there we go with the pulmonologist. That's coming up in a few weeks. Well, only because they can't schedule it any earlier. So in a couple of weeks, we'll find out that result. The blood work, who knows? I might get that in a couple of days, because they did sap blood out of me today. So maybe I'll hear about that in a couple of days. That's just IgE levels. I don't know where else you gotta put on that request. Then, of course, I'll have the biopsy results. Granted, if they do like they did on the other biopsy, they usually have a vague general idea just from observation and looking at the thing. In this case, it's going to be the mass. Last time it was that stomach nodules, and they could tell just by looking at it, it was benign. But we'll see what happens with this next one. To see what those results are. Will they be able to tell immediately, or will they have to wait? So we'll find that out either this week or next week because the situation happens on Wednesday. So we'll see what that is. And then I got the continuing bowel issues, which has happened during this, all the stuff going on at the same time. Respiration, the respiration. And remember, the reason why we had the CT scan of my lower the GI tract was because I was having diarrhea for 10 days. And the doctors still haven't figured that out. I just figured, because in the beginning, if I remember vaguely, is that when I first was having diarrhea, I was thinking it was probably because of some vengeful activity I had with a lot of Christmas candies, chocolates in particular. And I said, okay, that's probably what I ate, and maybe some other remedy, because I was trying to also work on my respiration. And who knows, the garlic, I might have had more garlic than normal, and sometimes if you have more garlic than normal, that might cause you to have diarrhea. But that shouldn't have went 10 days. So that's the whole issue right there. Only that stuff should have a couple of days been done. So who knows now what's going on, because I'm still having some on occasion. The other day I was like, oh, so bad. I was like, oh my gosh, I might end up going to the hospital, but I didn't go and God help me to manage to stick it out. Because now I'm starting to think, who knows, maybe something in my sinful gluttony may have also struck something in my digestive system, in my bloodstream, because I'm a Weight Watcher, and that kind of eating is not normal for me anyway. So that might have kicked into something that now says, oh man, we're gonna change your tolerance level for chocolates or some of these sweets that I had excessively eaten around Christmas time. I don't know. We're going to work that out. We're still working through that right now just to see, okay, if I eliminate some of the stuff out of my diet, will all of a sudden, oh, wow, amazing. It just went away. That's what I'm hoping for. But the good part about that, only because the 10-day part, not about the initial couple of days, because it should not have gone 10 days, is because that caused the doctors to say, what the heck's going on for 10 days? It just makes no kind of sense. A few days, okay, you got either a stomach virus or, eating too much candy, eating too much food, whatever, eating the wrong thing, what do you call it, food poisoning, any of that kind of stuff. Should not last 10 days. So because of that, they did the CT scan, and then they found the mass on my stomach, which I'm having a biopsy for the second time this week. So who knows? Maybe that was God's way of helping them find the stomach mass that they may not normally have found, because there's definitely no pain involved, no nothing that has anything to do with the stomach. No bump, no lump, I wouldn't even had any indication that there was something there, other than for the fact that they had to do a scan and then go, wow, what's that? We're looking for something else, and we see something else. So we'll see. And then what's the issue about that? Whether it's an issue or not an issue, who knows? Maybe God just want the people to know that it's there, something to be watched, just like my other nodules in my lungs. Now the nodules in my stomach, just something for them to keep watching and make sure I'm okay every year, to make sure it's still cool, it's not growing, it's decreasing in size, whatever. So we'll see how that rolls in the next coming weeks. So that's a lot. And then the foot doctor, that's just my normal annual kind of thing. I go to the foot doctor for, just to make sure I don't have any issues. So that's preventive medicine for me. It's just like my annual doctor with the general practitioner, the female doctor, any of those doctors, GYN doctor, any of those doctors, my eye doctor. Those are just the usual annual thing that you go to, because with the feet, since I do a lot of walking, miles and miles of walking, I do whatever I can to prevent any foot injuries, because when your feet are not happy, the rest of your body's not happy. That's just as bad as if your gut's not happy, the rest of your body's not happy. So those two things need to always be in check, the gut and the feet. But the feet, ooh, that's just messed up. So that's just preventive medicine. So I can't wait to go there next week just to get that one done. And then the 24 hours of no driving. Oh my goodness, that's because of the fact that, unlike the first biopsy, it was early in the morning, which I love, because you got to starve from midnight. And then clear liquids for a time, and then 4 hours before we can't hit nothing. So cool. It's early in the morning, we get done, and when it's done, and we were done really early. I was shocked. We were done about 10 o'clock. So I think it was like 7 or something. And then by 10 o'clock, I was at breakfast at a restaurant. We were all good to go. This time it's at 2:40 afternoon. I'm like, no, and no, and no. That means I'm going to be starving for a whole lot more hours. And hopefully, because the hour is so late, that hopefully the procedures before all go on time, because if they don't go on time, then it means that the domino effect is Okay, if they're late, then by the time you get to me, who knows what time it'll be later in the afternoon, and I'm that much more hungrier, and it's just that much later, and on and on and on. So yeah, like I mentioned in the last video, last Monday's admissions from the heart, that I'm gonna make this into a spiritual fast, so it don't go to waste. Okay, this is gonna be a spiritual fast. It's gonna be going a little longer. I mean, I have no problems doing a 24-hour fast, but this is not 24 hours. It's just like, man, it's not a chosen fast like a 24-hour fast that I normally would do for spiritual reasons. This is like because they're telling me to, and I don't know when the end is. So not cool at all. So okay, it's gonna be a spiritual fast, and I'm hoping a lot of you will continue to pray with me about that the procedure is properly handled. There's no issues with them making mistakes while they're down there, because anytime you have a procedure, there's always a chance of injury, accidental, that kind of stuff, which has nothing to do with why we went down there, and all of a sudden you got more problems than you had before. Like, hold up, you cool that way about the mask, but now we punctured this, that, and the other, and you bleeding out. So it's just continue for making sure I'm safe. They do what they find and go from there, and I just have continued peace regardless of what the findings are, what the journey is that God has planned for me, because none of this is happening for no reason, especially all of this accumulated stuff all at one time. The dental thing is just a regular dental appointment, so it's not a big deal, but it's a deep cleaning that I have for a paranormal reason, so that's nothing big deal. But the darn breathing issues, the sinus issues, the bowel issues, and now the stomach it's like, what the heck? This is all kind of crazy, all at the same time. Are they connected? Because the body is connected, just like the body of Christ is connected. When the toe is hurting, the rest of the body is suffering too. So who knows, how any of this applies and why is it all happening at the same time? It's just like, okay, guys, I don't know. Because it's not like I'm not doing nothing, I got nothing else to do. We go through something like this, it's like I got it. In addition to all this, because I get things coming up, like I just told you, I get things to do, places to go because of God, and so don't have time to be sick or have anything in there. And I don't think anybody has time to be sick, no matter whether you have nothing going on in your life or a million things going on in your life. Being sick, not being happy physically is not something that anybody would have any problem with fitting in their schedule. Well, I ain't got nothing else to do. Let's just give me some. So that's anyway. So now I'm just glad that God is involved with this, because if it wasn't, I don't know where my brain would be at this point. Because then sometimes Satan wants to put it on. Well, what if you and what if if you got some issues, you might not be able to do this and that. Like we're not even going there. We're not even thinking that. Some people keep being really discouraging by trying to make things worse than they are. It's like we haven't got there far yet. We got to get the biopsy first. So they haven't even known about the rest of the stuff, because I've been having breathing issues forever. I mean, asthma, the E-asthma that we talked about last time too, or a couple of times ago. It's just that normal way of life, dealing with breathing issues and still being active, still in fact being active and walking all the time keeps me from being worse. If I wasn't, then yeah, that wouldn't be good at all. So the activity keeps me the healthiness that I am right now, even though it's not ideal, but it's good. It's good. Yeah. So okay, so when crazy stuff happens, this song, It Is Well, My Soul, comes to mind, besides just the fact that I get to walk with God all the time. Because that song, it got deeper with me, not because of the song, because it has all over time. But once I started learning about the composer and the artist and the writer, it got really, really deep for me. Because Phillip Paul Bliss composed the music, and he and his wife died in his train accident on December 29th, 1876. He escaped. His wife didn't. In fact, his wife was still okay. So the thing about this thing, I am a train enthusiast. The only reason I got involved with the story because it was involving a train accident, and somehow I got involved with the story. I even read the book, and then I even went out to where him and his wife are buried in the Chestnut Grove Cemetery in Ashtabula in this mass grave with a bunch of other people that didn't survive on the train. I actually went out there, took pictures. And that was a whole nother deeper experience, going there and hearing the train whistle in the background. as a train enthusiast. So, but the story is that the train was chugging along 1876, and you see the 29th. It was only a few days after Christmas. It's cold, it's snowy, all that kind of stuff. The train trestle that the train was going over, which was going over a river, collapsed. Only the engine went across the bridge, the trestle. The rest of the train went down into the river. So all the cars, boom, 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 falling down on each other, boom, 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 boom. So people either they initially died from from the fall, train cars falling on them, on whatever. So that's the initial cause of death. And then you had the second people who were dying it's wintertime. You got hypothermia, you got water, all this kind of stuff, freezing, all that kind of, and even though back in the day they had those big, bulky clothes, let's just go with that. So that just probably added to it. You got heavy, bulky clothes on in the wintertime on top of that. So people would die from hypothermia. And then, this is in the middle of nowhere, 1800. This is before they had fire departments. They had fire departments that were with buggies and horses, bucket brigade kind of thing. None of this, okay, hoses, blah, 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 all that kind of, we used to hear emergency ambulances zooming around. They didn't have none of that stuff. So it took a minute for people to find out that this has happened. And when they did find out this was happening, this mainly people from the area, from their homes, came and grabbed people and said, let me help you in my home. And then they did, the fire department came, but that was a whole nother drama there because I'll get that in a minute. So people dying from crash, hypothermia. So then, also then the train kitchen had a fire, and so the fire came through the train and started burning up the people that couldn't get out, the trapped people. So these people were trapped and injured, can't get out because they're pent, whatever. You can hear the burning, screaming, and everything. And the fire department, the bucket brigade, and all that kind of stuff, for some reason, chose not to try to put it out. It was real difficult. It was a big fire, and it probably seemed hopeless, so they didn't really do what they needed to do to put the fire out because they weren't able. So that didn't happen. So people died from fire, the train falling, and from hypothermia. And then you had also other people, the people that came from houses I told you about, came to help people. They took them home and helped them and heal them up, and then they would eventually ship them to some medical institutions somewhere else if they were really that bad. So it take time, transport from a river to somebody's house to wherever place that they could go to from there. And some of them probably didn't need as much injury anyway, medical attention. But then there were some people that also got taken away that thought they were kind people, were not. Those people were robbers. They were like, oh yeah, come on, let me help you out. Just like con men now. There's con men there, there's con men everywhere. They took them, robbed them, killed them. Oh my gosh. So you got falling from a train, hypothermia, fire, robbers. 4 ways right there. So, and then the robbers are going through helping other people doing the same thing. So those 4 ways of dying. Ooh, so you can imagine the survivors, right? Like, oh my gosh, how to survive 4 different ways. I'm trying to make sure I'm not forgetting another way that you could die through there. Yeah. And then the even killing more part. Okay, fire's done. What do you want to call it? Train is burnt to a crisp. Robbers came back to pick over what was left. There was no killing and dying at all, but they were coming back through charred bodies and stuff, picking over whatever valuable things that didn't get burned or melted in this fire. Like, gee whiz, that is some crazy stuff. So that just kind of blew me away when I read about that and learned about this story, and then had to go out to the cemetery to see this mass grave. The mass grave is mainly for people that they couldn't either identify or never were claimed. So I was kind of surprised to find out that Mr. and Mrs. Bliss was in that mass grave. I'm like, Daddy knew who they were, but no one came to claim them. This is almost like a pauper's grave where people don't claim people, and that happens now. People don't get claimed. They get put in a pauper's grave right here in Cleveland. Wherever there's a cemetery, there's some kind of pauper's grave somewhere where they put people that people don't claim, and maybe they do know them, but they can't afford to bury them, so they go into this other cemetery and get buried, and there we go. Because I haven't went to one in Cleveland just to believe that that's really happening now, but sometimes people can't afford to put somebody in the ground, so city just puts him in this unknown grave in this cemetery. So anyway, there's one nearby where I live at. So for me to go out there to see this mass grave of these people, most of which weren't identified. Can you imagine? There had been a lot of missing people, and they probably wondered what happened because they didn't even know he was on the train. They didn't know to look for him. But these are famous people right here, included in this mass grave with these other folks. So the deep part about the story was Mr. Phillips had escaped. He escaped. He had got out the fire. Wife was still in there screaming, couldn't get out. He couldn't get her out. No matter what she could do. But he went back in and died with her. So that's deep right there when I'm thinking about the song, It Is Well With My Soul, that he could have survived. But it was so well with his soul, with his relationship with God, that he went in there with her and died with her. So I was like, wow, that just got real heavy when I learned that story when I was reading the book and reading the article that led me to this book and read to the whole story. And like I said, I had to take the trip to Asheville just to see this grave. And then the words was written by Horetio Spafford. And that dude, man, this is another one. He wrote the verbiage after he lost his 4 daughters in a shipwreck. He and his wife and the kids were supposed to be going, and his 4 daughters were supposed to be going somewhere. And because right now it just went out of my head where were they going? Doesn't matter. They're going on a ship like the Titanic. And the ship that the wife and the kids were in crashed into another ship. And the ship sunk. Both the ships sank. The 4 daughters died, but the wife survived. So I don't know where he would have been in that if he had survived or not. But the 4 daughters, wow, how do you lose 4 daughters? Gone. And it had sunk in 12 minutes. It was real fast sinking. And then he also experienced a Great Chicago Fire, which ruined him economically as a lawyer and a property investor. So after that, he was financially jacked up anyway. So he lost his financial stability and he lost a lot of family. So it was just him and his wife. So his relationship with God was so deep, so foundational, so faithful that it was still well with his soul in spite of those losses. So it's between the two of those, the authors, the one that composed it and the one that wrote the words. It's just like, wow, they went through some stuff. So now every time I hear that song at church, I think about them, especially the guy that wrote the lyrics and then he could have survived. It's just like, wow, it was really well with his soul and as well with the soul of the writer who wrote the lyrics. So when in the first part of that song, there's a line of that song that's deep, but the first part of the song just says, when peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. And I just love that because that just helps me just have peace, especially with all the crap that's going on in my body and has been going on in my body for the last several years. I mean, it's been more than just 5 years from the pandemic because I had this whole asthma stuff and respiratory stuff way before that. And it's just been an ongoing adventure. And now we're adding in this stomach mask and whatever. I don't know. There's always something. So, and then I just love the other parts in that song about how my sins are nailed to the cross. So it's just a deep song, but mainly it's just talking about no matter what trouble comes along, what Satan even sends my way. Because Satan sends a lot of stuff, and it says that in the song too about Satan sending stuff. It's just still gonna be well with my soul, and that's how it is right now. I'm still praying for no matter what happens on the biopsy issue, that it's gonna always remain that way, that it's well with my soul. So in the scriptures it says in November, Isaiah 48:18-22, if only you had paid attention to my commands. This scripture is talking to the Israelites because the Israelites were always a bunch of knuckleheads, stiff-necked, and all this kind of stuff. And so it says here in Isaiah tells them, if only you had paid attention to my commands, because this is what God is telling him to say, your peace would have been like a river. Your well-being like the waves of the sea. And there is no peace, says the Lord, for the wicked. Wow, can't have peace if you're not following God's ways, if you're wicked and just That's the source of peace. God is the source of peace in all situations, all drama. All we need to do is obey his commands and do whatever his word says. Do this, don't do that. Whatever it is, live the way he would, live the way Jesus did. And we will always have peace because he is the ultimate source of peace. Ooh, so thank you so much for coming by again for another Mondays and Missions from the Heart. And by the time I talk to you next Monday, I'll have a super update on hopefully maybe the biopsy results. That would be kind of nice, or even just talking about what this new experience would be like, since this is going to use a ultrasound in addition to the scope to see where this thing is, and then get the biopsy, and then at 24 hours afterwards. So what's bugging me about the 24 hours after I had told my boss I'm going to be off Wednesday, the day of the thing. I said, oh man, I got to stay off longer because the 24 hours lasts into the next day. So I got to be up 2 days. Like, man. So God is forcing me to chill, have a chill pill the day after because I can't drive and go nowhere. So I'm stuck at home. If I go anywhere, that means somebody picked me up and took me somewhere. So we'll see how that rolls. I'll have a lot to talk about next week about what happened at that and just how the week went. So I hope you have a great week this week and come back later for another episode of Mondays and Missions from the Heart.